Look at this shit. Look at this Bilge. Look at this Bosch. Look at this guff. Look at this fucking malarkey. This is an article by ProPublica, and I'm going to try to record my coverage of this as best as I can and give commentary from a leftist perspective, and try my best to explain why this is another disgrace. How could anybody do something so inanely insipid? Let's just read. These billionaires received taxpayer-funded stimulus checks during the pandemic. Let me read that again. These billionaires received taxpayer-funded stimulus checks during the pandemic. Billionaires do not need stimulus checks because stimulus checks are allocations of money for financially disenfranchised people. People who struggle securing regular incomes to the point where they have to rely on governments. And since there have been plenty of layoffs in 2020 and 2021, people need COVID stimulus, but billionaires aren't among them. This fucking illustration perfectly sums everything up. By Alex Bedoni. IRS records reveal that 18 billionaires and some 250 other ultra-wealthy people received aid and intended to help middle-class Americans. The authors are right here. This was published the 3rd. It took me a while to get to it, but I'm doing it now. ProPublica, just for a background, is a non-profit organization newsroom that investigates abuses of power. The secret IRS filings is an ongoing reporting project. Signed up to be notified. It's a really interesting story, like the Pandora Papers, but just a domestic thing. And in March 2020, the first wave of coronavirus infections all but shut down the U.S. economy. Congress responded with rare speed, passing a $2.2 trillion relief package called the CARES Act. The centerpiece of the law was an emergency payment to over 150, that's almost half the country, American households that needed help. 150, let's look up the population of the, I just want to be sure, of America, 2021. Yeah, almost half the country. So, this just goes to illustrate that half the country needs this COVID stimulus. Does this not demonstrate how absurd, how egregious this wealth divide is? It's absolutely insane. And the left has been saying this for decades, but those on the economic right wing and free market deifiers just want to hold us back as a society. Congress used a simple filter to determine who was eligible for assistance. The full $1,200 was limited to single taxpayers who reported $75 a year or less in income on their previous tax return. Now, I want you to keep this specifically in mind, because you're entitled to $1,200 from the CARES Act if you report $75,000 a year or less in net income, okay? In net income. That's the regular income you report on the tax return. It's what you file. Married couples got $24,000, or not $24,000, $2,400 if they had reported less than $150,000 in income. Money was sent automatically to those who qualified. Remember this as well. Take note of that. Our renter, worth $3.7 billion according to Forbes, did not appear to need the cash offered by the CARES Act. After all, his 62,000 square foot Hamptons home is one of the largest in the country, so he was unlikely to get cabin fever during lockdown, let alone have trouble buying food. Nevertheless, Rennert, who made his fortune as a corporate narrator in the 80s and 90s, got a $2,400 check from the government. Because he got that $2,400 check, it goes to show that he reported less than $150,000 in income. Now, keep this in mind. Most rich people make their money via the accumulation of their stock, and they can sell the stock at any date, but how they get the majority of their income is through dividends made on their stock. But it's not filed as income to the IRS. That's filed as capital gains. It's a completely separate category of money made. So this guy, this reprobate scumfuck, reported, he's married, reported less than $150,000. And this cunt is a billionaire. So the significance of them reporting so little income is one, so they pay less in taxes on that income, and two, more significantly, so they pay less in capital gains. Let's just go to a capital gains tax calculator. Let's see here. I like NerdWallet, and I just want to show you what effect reporting less and less income has on the amount you're taxed on capital gains, which is how most rich people make their money. Let's say I made bank, and the assets grew in up to $1 million. Unrealistic, since the system is rigged for the rich, but okay. And let's say we're reporting maybe $10,000. Oh yeah, I as a multi-billionaire am really poor and have no income. Bunch of horseshit, man. And most people keep their stocks in the market for a year and a day, so they get less taxes. If you keep it for in the market for 366 days, it immediately slashes the amount you're taxed on capital gains. So your pre-tax capital gain, that's the net amount you've made. Your total taxable income, including your capital gains, is $1,009,000. Okay? Your estimated capital gains tax amount is this much. Now, married filing jointly, we've got all the boxes ticked. Let's lower that even more. Let's say 5,000. Oh, look at that. It just jumped significantly down. And they can buy shit tons of tax credits and claim a bunch of deductions to the point where they pay zero. If there's any demographic that knows the most about tax law loopholes, it's the fucking rich, because tax law is so esoteric and it's not taught in public schools, but it absolutely needs to be if we're going to stop perpetuating this wealth divide. Alright. Yeah, that guy's a scumfuck. George Soros, who the right wing keeps on blaming for the left's acquisition of power, but I haven't seen that paycheck from this guy. Well, I have literally seen him collect a paycheck, but none of that shit has gone to me. George Soros, the prominent hedge fund manager and philanthropist who's worth $8.6 billion, didn't need the CARES Act either. Neither did his son, Robert, himself, who is worth hundreds of millions. But they too both got checks, both returned the checks according to their representatives. Good on them for returning the checks, but again, you're not reporting you're reporting so little income because you make a precipitous amount of your money on capital gains. This is a load of horseshit, folks. What is federal tax law at this point? It's a fucking joke, that's what it is. And the joke's all being played on the working class. Let's continue. ProPublica, using its trove of IRS records, identified at least 18 billionaires who received stimulus payments, which were funded by U.S. taxpayers, that's us, in the spring of 2020, Hundreds of other ultra-wealthy taxpayers also got checks. They're reporting low income, people. They make their money on capital gains. The wealthy taxpayers who received the stimulus checks got them because they came in under the government's income threshold. See, it's income, they report. Capital gains is a completely separate metric, treated completely differently by the IRS. In fact, they reported way less taxable income than that, even hundreds of millions less, after they used business write-offs to wipe out their gains. Business write-offs to wipe out their gains. Remember when Amazon carried over deductions from when they were losing money as a company in the 90s and 2000s? Yeah. Same shit is happening with individual tax returns. ProPublica found 270 taxpayers who collectively disclosed $5.7 billion in income, according to their previous tax return, but who were able to deploy deductions at such a massive scale that they qualified for stimulus checks. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. All listed negative net incomes on tax returns. They are fucking us. They are bleeding us dry! And we're the ones paying for our own suffering. An absolute fuck. Okay, consider two stimulus recipients with similarly huge incomes in 2018. Timothy Headington, that sounds like a one-percenter name, is an oil mogul, real estate developer, and executive producer of such films as Argo and World War Z, and he's worth $1.4 billion. He had $62 million in income in 2018, but after $342 million in write-offs, his final result was negative $280 million. The same was true with Renard, whose $64 million income that year was erased by $355 million in tax deductions, for a final total of negative $291 million. Negative. Fucking hell. Like, and legally, these people aren't lying. This is completely legal. They just know how to use tax law to their advantage. Let's see. Tax law. No, for dummies. Something like this. Something like this. You could easily just take by your side in the beginning 2 weeks of April and just catalog through it. And you could probably report so much of a net negative income, completely and erroneously inaccurate from what you're actually making. Let's continue. Oh, fuck, my faith in humanity, man. Props to ProPublica for actually reporting on this exploitative lunacy, this abuse of our law. Figures like these reveal a basic truth about the U.S. income tax system. Most people earn the overwhelming majority of their income via wages and take deductions where they can. The working class, since they only have such a non-substantial income in capital gains, like securities, stocks, bonds, index funds, stuff like that, they only have so much of their money that can be taxed as capital gains. And the majority of their income is made through, is filed under income to the IRS. Take the deductions where they can, but the income of the ultra-wealthy has revealed on their taxes tells, at best, a partial story, as ProPublica reported earlier this year. I'm going to copy this and put it in the description. The wealthiest taxpayers often have great flexibility in when and how they make taxable income, allowing them to pay a minuscule portion of their wealth growth in taxes. For the ultra-wealthy, wages are to be avoided, carrying as they do the burden of not only income tax, but also of payroll taxes. And for those of you who don't know, payroll taxes are taxes that are automatically deducted from your paycheck by your employer. And are usually calculated, as a percentage of the salaries that employers pay their employees. A percentage, for a more inclusive and tacit definition, more comprehensive. A percentage withheld from an employee's pay by an employer who pays it to the government on the employee's behalf. The tax is based on wages, salaries, and tips paid to employees. Federal payroll taxes are deducted directly from the employee's earnings and paid to the Internal Revenue Service. With capital gains, you don't get that. You don't get that. I'm giving up, man. Maybe I should put all my money. It'll go against my socialist values. Maybe I'll put all my fucking money into the stock market. And into safe securities. Via wages. But the income of the the wealthiest taxpayers often have great flexibility in how they take taxable income, allowing them to pay a minuscule portion of their wealth growth in taxes. For the ultra-wealthy, wages are their enemies. Okay? Wages are their enemy. Wages rarely made up a significant portion of income for the 270 wealthy stimulus check recipients identified by ProPublica. In total, only $82 million, or 1.4% of the $5.7 billion in income taken by the group, came in the form of wages. The ultra-wealthy have other tax advantages. Many can tap a particularly generous vein of deductions. Businesses they own. Businesses get so many fucking tax deductions. It's insane. These can wipe out all of their income, even for years to come, unlike other deductions, like those for charitable giving. Certain industries, like real estate, oil and gas, are a well-known source of tax benefits that can generate paper losses, even for a successful business. It is a load of horseshit. Like, tax deductions and how they're written by law have these completely superfluous and emphatically irrelevant attachments to them, like certain child tax credits. Like, you can carry losses. If you're a business, you can carry losses over the years. The amount of stimulus aid that went to the ultra-wealthy taxpayers was a negligible piece of the trillions spent via the CARES Act, but the fact that billionaires were able to qualify shows that when legislators rely on income tax returns to determine the eligibility for aid, there can be surprising results, which is why we need to do more in terms of taxes for capital gains, and this is one I don't hear a lot of lefties preaching about, loans borrowed against those stocks with the stocks as collateral. What billionaires will do is they'll buy tons of assets like securities, index funds, usually in private companies, stock, for example, and since they hold it and just rely on the dividends for income, the dividends don't pay out that frequently. They borrow loans against their stock and use the stock as collateral for those loans. Now, if you invest in a safe company, eventually those intangible assets are going to appreciate over time, which means you can pay off both the principal and the interest on the loan. And they just use those loans as their disposable income. And it's legal. It's legal. It's just knowledge of the tax system and the loopholes in it. Oh, man. Asked what he thought about billionaires receiving stimulus checks, Senate Finance Committee Chair Ron Wyden, the Democrat from Oregon, responded, "The tax code is simply not equipped to tax billionaires fairly or even ensure they pay anything at all." Fucking based Democrats at it again. God damn. Ugh, our tax system is so fucking broken, man. ProPublica reached out to every stimulus check recipient mentioned in this article. Reinert and Headington did not respond to requests for comment. A spokesman for George Soros, who has advocated for higher taxes for the wealthy, said George returned his stimulus check. He certainly didn't request one. Robert Soros did the same, a spokesperson said. The Soros-funded Open Society foundations have donated to ProPublica. Okay, so it's good that Soros is supporting higher taxes for the rich. I hope those taxes are applicable to capital gains, but here's the thing. He's reporting so little income to, one, pay less taxes on income, and two, most importantly, to pay less taxes on capital gains. What is this, people? Like, I wonder if I can put, like, in a negative income. Negative $10,000. Yeah. Such a load of horseshit. If you put in, like, a negative amount, let's say negative 10 million. Yeah. Negative $1 million, your estimated capital gains amount is 0. Man. What a load. Like, deductions, and specifically tax credits. Tax credits reduce your taxable income by a set amount, but deductions deduce it by a certain percent. But they can claim whatever they can, and if they can't claim it, they can just buy tax credits. Pretty sure tax credits are for sale. Tax credits. Yeah. This is a fucking disgrace. Okay. Billionaires often reap sizable tax deductions from owning sports teams, as a ProPublica story this year detailed. A number of sports team owners were among the recipients of stimulus payments. Terrence Pegula? I don't know. Who is worth $5.7 billion and owns both the NFL's Buffalo Bills and the NHL's Buffalo Sabres, was one. Also getting a check was Glenn Taylor, worth $2.8 billion, who earlier this year struck a deal to sell Minnesota's NBA and WNBA teams for $1.5 billion. Pegula and Taylor did not respond to requests for comment. Alright. They're reporting little income, people. They're not being taxed because they're using loopholes to their advantage. Some taxpayers had enough in deductions to wipe out even hundreds of millions in... Yeah. So this wasn't an exaggeration. Let's see. I like NerdWallet's capital gains tax. Yeah. Okay. Robert Dart is a scion of the Dart family, which owns Dart Container Corp. The maker of the iconic red Solo Cup. In 2018, he reported income exceeding $300 million, but deductions left him with a financial result of negative $39 million. And if you're anything at or below negative $1 million, as we found out, you are not taxed on capital gains at all. This should be a fucking crime against humanity. I know it's obviously a Keynesian is going to get pissed by this sort of dodging. It's almost like a visceral reaction for people like me. But think of what this tax income for the government could do for the people. maybe we could just get a few dollars towards universal health care, public infrastructure, transit. Something that the public could use to their advantage. Dart and his brother renounced their U.S. citizenship decades ago to take advantage of a then-existing tax break available for expatriates. Dart filed his U.S. tax return from an address in the Cayman Islands. Yeah. But got a stimulus payment just the same. Fucking hell. Yeah. Cayman Islands. It always goes back to there. Billionaires' tax isn't new. Yeah. Just fucking doesn't get enacted. And if a new tax law taxing them gets enacted, they can just lobby to create a new loophole artificially. Money is too much power. Money is power, and it's too much power. In response to questions, the general counsel for Dart Container wrote, Mr. Dart believes that people in his position should not have received COVID stimulus funds. Okay. Report your fucking income! Mr. Dart did not request any COVID stimulus funds. It's sent automatically to people reporting income under that threshold we mentioned. What was it? Yeah. Couples that reported less than $150,000. What a load of horseshit. Oh, man. And there's still some of this article. Instead, those funds were directly deposited into his account by the U.S. Treasury without his consent. It's an automatic thing. Everybody was notified about this. He voluntarily decided to report income below the threshold. He did consent to it. As Congress determined that taxpayers with resident alien status were eligible for such payments. How generous of them. This is our fucking tax money, folks. Mr. Dart has returned the COVID stimulus funds he received to the U.S. Treasury pursuant to instructions provided by the IRS. Oh, man, report your income. This should not be the standard by which we give billionaires a pass. Some of the ultra-wealthy have received government benefits on more than one occasion. Take Joseph DiMena, a partner in Zewig DiMena, some fucking Monopoly man name, a pioneering hedge fund. An art collector and polo aficionado, he owns a club that holds charity polo matches for anti-poverty causes. Oh shit! Charities are a bunch of fucking tax write-offs in and of themselves. Get out of here with that fucking bullshit. In 2017, he received a special payout from his fund, $1.1 billion, but in 2018, without such a massive payout, business deductions swung his income back to where it had been in the years before his big payday. Less than $0. That entitled him to a stimulus check. In both 2015 and 2016, DiMena's negative income also entitled him to $2,000 in refundable child tax credits meant to support middle-class families with child care expenses, and most of those middle-class families don't even end up claiming those credits because they don't know they exist as the result of schools not fucking teaching those tax policies. DiMena did not respond to our request-seeking comment. Others among the super rich also received stimulus payments the last time Congress offered them when millions of Americans were struggling. The 2009 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act offered a $400 tax credit for individuals and $800 for married couples. It was called Making Work Pay. Speaking of the whole 2009 financial crisis, what was that caused by, folks? Think about it. Insurance companies selling shitty subprime mortgages to unqualified lendees, to unqualified buyers, only bolstered by MBSs and CDOs, which investment companies were selling, which were then only bolstered by rating agencies, which the investment firms had bribed. The rich caused this, people! And how many people were fucking prosecuted for it? Like, Wall Street got shit tons of bailouts while the middle class suffered. And one guy got fucking prosecuted for it? Get the hell out of here with this shit. Making work pay. Hold the rich accountable. This isn't new. The left has been saying this since the left has existed. Forrest Preston, the founder of Life Care Centers for America, one of the largest long-term care companies in the U.S., is worth $1.2 billion. In 2009, he got his $400 boost. The next year, he posted an income of $112 million. By 2018, however, his income had gone negative again. Wow! Such a drastic and precipitous loss in such a short amount of time, Mr. Preston, entitling him to a $1,200 payment in 2020. Absolutely fantastic. This makes me sick. The same year he received his stimulus check, Preston's company successfully lobbied to win a tax break for their nursing home industry. Preston did not respond to a request for comment. Taylor, the Minnesota Timberwolves owner, is another two-time stimulus recipient. 2 times! Fucking double the poshness, twice the fall for the middle class. Oh, sorry. No. In 2009 and again in 2020, so was Woodley Hunt, senior chairman of Hunt Companies, a family-owned firm that is one of the country's largest owners of multifamily properties. Hunt did not respond to a request seeking comment. Oh, man. Okay. Okay. Former Lehman Brothers CEO Richard Fuld. A big salary was a key part of the $400 million here in the 5 years before the firm's historic collapse. In 2008, I'm so fucking glad Lehman Brothers crashed and burned. But in recent years, he's been running a company called Matrix Investment Partners that he set up to invest his own money. The tax losses generated by that company were one reason he got a stimulus check. Reached by phone and asked whether he wanted to comment. Fold said, "I'm not interested. Thank you." What a fucking coward. Fucking coward. Go to hell. And if you want to know where hell is, right now, it's in the squalor of the working class. It's in our squalor. Another CARES Act beneficiary was Eric Prince, who before deductions had $5.3 million in income in 2018. Prince founded Black... yeah. The usual suspects now. Yeah. Like, it comes to a certain point, you find out who is taking these stimulus checks to the point where it doesn't surprise you, you know? A private military company that received hundreds of millions in government contracts. This guy is a taxpayer robber baron. He has denounced excess government spending, saying we're being bled dry by debt. You're the recipient of it! You fucking asshole. Prince did not respond to a request for a comment. Proposal in the Democrats, once $3.5 trillion, now under $2 trillion, Build Back Better legislation because the fucking Republicans are slashing public funding, killing us. Currently the subject of a fevered negotiations would curb the ability of wealthy taxpayers to report negative income. Fucking based Biden. It would do so by restricting the ability to use business losses to wipe out other types of income like capital gains or dividends. Instead, business deductions would only offset business income. The idea, which builds on a provision of the 2017 Trump tax bill, is one of the few tax provisions to have survived the recent negotiations, at least for now. First proposed by House Democrats in September, it was then projected to produce $167 billion in revenue over the next 10 years. The provision was also included in a version of the legislation released in October 28th. Not included last week's drafts was a provision that would have directly affected the ability of billionaires to manipulate their incomes. A number of the billionaires who received stimulus checks were able to report negative incomes to the IRS, despite getting richer. A billionaire income tax proposed by Biden would increase taxes and wealth under the U.S. Under the current system. Gains taxed only when they're realized, such as when someone sells a stock or when the quarterly dividend payout occurs. But again, as I've stated before in this video, that is not where the majority of their disposable income comes from. It is loans borrowed with their stock as collateral against them. This is a fucking outrage. The wealthy elite laugh at you daily for not understanding tax laws they manipulate and create for the sake of their own benefit. They do not need stimulus. So why the hell are they reporting this kind of erroneous income? It's axiomatically incorrect that they have these negative incomes, despite the fact that they are getting richer, even not on capital gains. This is a load of horseshit, and it's fairly well known that Americans, a lot of the working class and billionaires alike, don't report accurate incomes. I kind of detest that as a Keynesian because I report all of my income accurately and I want it to go back into public infrastructure. But there needs to be harsher punishments and I'm not inciting violence. I'm just inciting law reform, welfare reform, and reform on tax laws, federal tax reform specifically. There need to be harsher prosecutions, which is why I give my money to the government. Harsher prosecutions, harsher penalties, and more fastidious attention paid into this by the IRS, the FTC, the SEC, etc. FBI. We need to pay attention to this more precipitously, and we need to take vigorous note of what these billionaires are doing. Close all of the loopholes, monitor who is trying to create these loopholes and exploit them, and put them absolutely and unequivocally in the public eye. The wealthy elite laugh at you daily. This is a fucking outrage, and everybody should treat it as such. I'm done here.